Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Ishvaro Guru Atmeti Murti Bheda Vibhavine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Shruti Smriti Puranam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Om Namo Namaha. A hearty welcome to all divine selves. Two days ago, we celebrated the International Day of Yoga. It's heartening and great that the world has recognized the value of yoga. The ancient wisdom and philosophy of yoga has now become a household name in the world. And for the right reasons, it has tremendous health benefits, and along with physical, mental well-being, also the spiritual dimensions of that philosophy are being explored. But at the same time, it's a great tragedy that for the vast majority of the preachers and practitioners of yoga across the world, yoga has been reduced to gymnastics, twisting and bending the body, and what yoga calls asanas, the postures, physical postures, to a large extent has become synonymous with yoga. My dear friends, yoga is not gymnastics. It's true that physical postures are important, and to begin with, they are important also. But yoga is neither gymnastics nor yogasana. Yoga is a great philosophy. Yoga is essentially the art, science and philosophy of divine union. When the individual self unites with the supreme eternal self, that state is essentially known as yoga. As per the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So, objective, or you can say the ultimate objective of yoga is to realize, to attain, or to merge with the supreme reality. There is no denying the fact that even the physical postures called yogasanas and breathing exercises called pranayama and meditation, all of them have tremendous physical health benefits, and that's great. But physical well-being in itself is not yoga. Physical well-being is very important. There is no denying the fact. Shariramadhyam khalu dharma sadhanam. This body alone is the mode and medium for all the attainments, exercises and achievements. It's a means. Therefore, it's a sacred responsibility to keep this body healthy. But it would be a great tragedy if yoga is reduced to a science or art or a philosophy for physical well-being alone. In the second verse of Yoga Sutra, Maharshi Patanjali says, and most of you would know, he defines what is yoga. Yogas chitta vritti nirodhaha, cessation of mental modifications is yoga. Cessation of mental modifications is yoga. This simple and yet profound definition of yoga must be understood before you begin any journey towards yoga and yogic practices. It's not so encouraging to find that most of the yogic practitioners or even the yoga teachers neither try to understand the deeper philosophical metaphysical dimensions of yoga and the meaning of the second verse itself as to what are the dimensions of this definition that cessation of mental modifications is yoga. You go and talk to most of the so-called yoga charya, yoga instructors or yoga teachers who are running yoga ashramas, and they are doing good job. I have nothing against it. They are doing good job. But please bear in your minds, I am trying to emphasize on the fact that reducing yoga to a physical fitness exercise regime would be great injustice to the philosophy of yoga, to the legacy of great Patanjali. You must first understand what is the meaning of this profound statement of Patanjali that cessation of mental modifications is yoga. It means at least three fundamental things that you must understand. And by and large, my deeper comparative study of other philosophical systems, metaphysical, brings me to tell what I am going to tell you. It's not only yoga philosophy, it's almost all, particularly the Vedanta, Buddhism, Christianity, and many other metaphysical systems also tell you that mind manifesting as compulsive chain of thoughts which are termed by Maharshi Patanjali as Chitta Vritti. Chitta Vritti means mental modifications, compulsive chain of thoughts. Cessation of that Chitta Vritti alone is yoga, and any yoga which doesn't lead to cessation of those mental modifications could be at best a physical exercise, but not yoga. Therefore, Ashtanga Yoga of Maharshi Patanjali, if we want to do justice to this great philosophy and great wisdom of ancient India, which for right reasons has become so popular across the world, and people have realized its tremendous health benefits. But it's high time that we try to focus on its spiritual, philosophical, deeper dimensions of yoga that would have much more abiding and deep impacts in terms of the holistic well-being of the entire mankind. The cosmic well-being, must be the objective. So, if we want to become yogi in the true sense of the term, what Patanjali defines, what is the focus of our yoga practice? Yoga's Chitta Vritti, cessation of mental modifications. To put it in simple terms, breaking the chain of compulsive thoughts is the ultimate objective of yoga. I'll go deeper and explain the super psychology of yoga in brief. I'll go in brief because I would like to go in that supreme yoga, demonstrate that. I would like to go in samadhi. So I'll take hardly 10 to 15 minutes to explain the concept, scientific, rational, not belief. you, as you appear to be an individual self, the conditioned self has become finite, mortal, conditioned because of nothing but your mental modifications. Mental modifications and compulsive chain of thoughts is nothing but working and operationalization of the false, illusory, non-existent ego. A little difficult to understand. The ego alone manifests as mind and its operationalization as mental modifications, compulsive chain of thoughts. So if you want to get rid of mind and thereby the ego which has divided us or separated us from our divine, transcendental, immortal, eternal self as our true reality of the nature of Sacchidananda, our true nature as eternal existence, pure consciousness and infinite bliss has become oblivious or become hidden from ourselves because of none other than this ego, mind and compulsive chain of thoughts. So if we want to realize our true nature, our true identity, we must get rid of the mind, the ego, and mind and ego exist in no other way than compulsive chain of thoughts. That's why Maharshi Patanjali cessation of mental modifications is yoga. It leads you to your true nature of Sacchidananda. Therefore, we need to understand as to how and why the mind creates this illusory self, the world of duality. In the reality, there is no duality. There is no duality in ultimate reality. All the duality that we perceive in our life, the so-called real life, waking state, is nothing but a function of mind, illusory mind. Entire world of duality and the phenomenal world has been created by none other than chitta vritti, mental modifications. And unless and until you are going to dissolve these mental modifications, you are not going to realize or see or experience your true nature as Sacchidananda, the eternal, immortal, omnipotent, omniscient and ever-present self that you are can be experienced directly, immediately, personally, only and only when the mental modifications, chitta vritti, are stopped. Therefore, by and large, if you study other religions or spiritual systems or metaphysics, you come around broadly to the same conclusion that the restless mind, which leads to compulsive chain of thoughts, is source of all bondage, all darkness, all sorrow, suffering, and sadness in our life. Therefore, we must understand as to how the mind makes us suffer. It's so simple. Once you go deeper, you will realize that there is nothing called mind, and you will realize for yourself once you experience samadhi that there is nothing called mind if there is no objective world or the objects of the external world to hold on to. Mind survives, exists, functions, and lives always on the crutches of the five senses. And all the five senses function only and only in external world, whether it's eye, nose, ear, skin, or tongue. All these sensory perceptions and the senses can perceive, experience, or know the objects of the external world alone. As long as this mind has something of the external world, some object of the external world to hold on to, it's always busy. Chitta vritti, mental modifications must need to hold on to some external object. If there is no object either of sight, hearing, touch, taste, or smell, the mind dissolves and dies right now, right here. Mind cannot exist, mental modifications, chitta vritti, cannot exist for a moment without the crutches of the five senses, and these five senses always operate without exception, operate in the external physical gross world. So as long as you are preoccupied, you means the mind, and as you have identified yourself with the mind, as long as you are preoccupied and possessed by the external world and the objects of the external world, there is no possibility of you realizing the cessation of mental modification. So yoga is impossible. Yoga will at best become just a physical exercise. So the journey of the yoga is a journey of within. Because the journey of the senses is always in the external world, and external world is always illusory, and it always keeps mind alive. If the mind is to be dissolved, you have to take a U-turn. And what is the U-turn in terms of mind? as long as you are looking, you are focusing, you are attending to, you are paying attention to the external world or the objects of the external world, your mind will continue to function. You will be under illusion, you will be in the darkness, bondage and suffering. But the moment you take a U-turn, that is, the mind which is running after the objects of the external world now takes a resolve that I am not going to go in the external world. I am going to instead take a tour within, a travel within, a journey within. When you close your eyes and sit comfortably in any asana, what he calls sukhasana, any comfortable asana where you can sit quietly, comfortably. That is what Patanjali defines. To that extent it is required. So, when you close your eyes in a silent, secluded place and try to quieten your mind, and in the beginning you take the help of breathing exercises, what you call pranayam, which are very useful in cessation of the mental modifications. Pranayam may have and scientifically proven physical benefits, but in yoga the spiritual and philosophical dimension of pranayam is so vital, so deep. Mind has a body, gross body, that is called breath. Mind cannot exist without breath. The faster the breathing and breathe out, the faster the mental modification. You must have observed it. The more restless you are, the faster is the breathing and breathe out. So, with the help of pranayama, you begin to quieten your breathing process. You slow it down slowly and slowly. When breath begins to get still, the mental modifications also slowly and slowly begin to lose their steam, whereby there was restlessness. The thoughts were moving at very fast frequency. Once you slow down your mental modification, and progressively there is a moment when you find that all the mental modifications have come to a standstill, and in this process pranayam helps to a large extent. In the beginning, and once already you have stopped your senses from holding on to any external object, you have begun the journey, that is journey within. Your breath has helped you to quieten your mind. The thoughts are moving at a very slow pace, and a moment comes, through the help of a mantra, now you begin meditation. For a reverse impact, the mental modifications have created a sense of reality in this material, illusory, external dual world. Now you are going in the reverse direction, and there some mantra will help you. But broadly speaking, right now it would suffice to suggest any mantra are not, even if you don't take help of any mantra, mantras are all no magic. Mantras are all designed to go and directly impact your psychosphere. To transform your psychosphere is the objective of all the mantras, and just create a reverse feeling, because there is nothing there to think about. Now your thoughts have stopped. You are not, your eyes are closed. You are not in touch with external world. So what to do? Here is the magic. Please try to understand. Now you are so privileged at this state of time. The mind becomes so helpless. Mental modifications have nothing to feed on to. They need some external objective world to survive. Now there is no object to perceive, to think about. The mind also has slowly and slowly begin to hold on to some reverse reality, either through mantra like Om or Soham or I am that. I am that. Soham. This also is not ultimate stage. And in the beginning, it's all the mantras are required only for the beginning. Even if you don't want to use any mantra, doesn't matter. Just think about deeply that I am that. That supreme conscious blissful reality present right now within myself, which is formless. I have closed my eyes. I have nothing to perceive or see through my sensory organs. So what I am supposed to do? I have brought my mental modifications to a standstill. The entire conditioned mind, which for thousands and thousands of years has believed that I am body, I am mind, I am the network of relationships connected to this body, this begins to fall. The edifice and the palace of the false and illusory life and world begins to crumble down, and with the crumbling of this illusory and false life, you begin to see the rise of this sun of self within, the self-effulgent, self-existing, self-luminous, pure consciousness, which is intrinsically blissful. I begin to experience my true nature, which is of the nature of pure consciousness, eternal existence, and infinite bliss. In that state, the mind becomes no mind. Since mind, this is a very fundamental statement I am going to make. Just remember this, it will have tremendous value for your yogic practice. The mind can never exist in formless and nameless. mind and mental modifications always require for their existence some name and form. Now you have dissolved the entire world of name and form by closing your eyes and quietening your mind. There is no form at the moment available to the mind to hold on to or think about. So you have become nameless, formless, or you can say you are established in a state where the mind has no name and form to hold on to, reflect on to. But the illusion in me that was that all the existence that we know and perceive of must have a name and form begins to crumble down, because at the moment I have no form, no name, still I exist. The pure consciousness within me, which illumines and reveals every experience, to me is not only existing or alive, but hundreds of times much more alive, alert, sensitive, and by nature it's blissful. It appears to be a self-radiant, infinitely blissful reality which has no name, which has no form, which is attributeless. So once you, through the introversion of mind, go deep within, in the process you dissolve the entire objective world which was preoccupying the mind and creating compulsive chain of thoughts has dissolved, and with the dissolution of mind, the eternal sun of self arises. On the burning pyre, just listen the sentence carefully. On the burning pyre of mind rises the rose of self. Blooms the lotus. With the dissolution of the mental modifications, there nothing remains to be conscious of or conscious about or concerned about. Therefore, you are not supposed to do anything, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to know anything, you just have to be. You have to get established in the being. Just being is the greatest achievement, the pinnacle, that is called as a yoga. The words are different, manifestation, explanation and expressions are different. That is called yoga by Patanjali. Other philosophical systems call differently, but the same state. Once the mind dissolves, with the dissolution of the mind, when there is no mind, what remains? Pure consciousness. The same mind which had become obsessed with the external world, that becomes impure. When consciousness out of its own volition begins to run after the external world, it becomes impure. The same pure consciousness, when it begins to run after the name and forms, it becomes impure, and that impure consciousness is called mind or ego. When the same mind, ego or mental modifications are dissolved, the same mind and ego return back to their source, that is pure consciousness. The impure consciousness manifesting as ego and mind returns back to its root, and it becomes again pure consciousness. That is the supreme state. That is what is called the union of the individual self. That mind and ego alone manifest as individual self. With the dissolution of the mind and ego, no individual self remains there. Only pure consciousness, which is infinite, non-dual, unbound, eternal, self-existing, almighty, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent reality. That non-dual reality you become. You always wear that only. It's not that you have manufactured, but compulsive chain of thoughts, chitta vritti, alone has covered up, enveloped your true nature of Sacchidananda. With the dissolution of the mind and cessation of mental modifications, you are now intimately, personally and immediately experiencing that nature of yours. It's not a matter of belief that you have read from some scriptures. Once the mind is dissolved, there are no mental modifications. You realize that and you experience the blissful awareness, its vastness, its blissfulness, the love, beauty and bliss which are inherent and intrinsic to awareness. You realize that you are. That is your true nature. To put all this simply in one sentence, what happens after all this? What you call yoga or the divine union, in that state, in samadhi, when the mind has dissolved, mental modifications have stopped, what happens? Listen. In that state, consciousness remains conscious of consciousness alone. Repeat, that's the end of all the metaphysics, all the spiritual practices. That is the ultimate objective of all spirituality. Millions and billions of scriptures written in all the religions and philosophical systems lead and aim at this and this alone. What is that? When consciousness is conscious of consciousness alone, that state is the supreme state. That is known as yoga or self-realization in Vedanta, God realization, moksha, and there are various names for that same state. Consciousness, which is pure by nature, becomes impure because of the mind and ego, which always keep running after one or the other object in this phenomenal world of the objective world, when you take a U-turn and the mind comes back at its source, and through meditation and other practices and pranayam, meditation, and then once you enter into samadhi, you dissolve your all mental modifications, the mind becomes no mind, and the one non-dual pure consciousness doesn't hold on to any name and form, any external object. Then consciousness is conscious of consciousness alone. That is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That is yoga. That is what you call enlightenment. In that state, what happens? You realize the falsity and illusory nature of the entire so-called material or real world. Deep within you experience for yourself the vastness of your various rituals and rigidities became heart and soul of those organized religions. So, to conclude, if you want to realize the grandeur of yoga in the true sense of the term, if you want to do justice to Maharshi Patanjali, and if you really want to spread the great and grandeur philosophy of yoga and its message, you must include and must teach and preach the heart and soul of yoga, that is yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Only then celebration or observation of the International Day of Yoga will have true meaning. Large number of the problems confronting the mankind will disappear if you really begin to spread. Even 5% of the total population of the world begins to practice yoga in the true sense of the term, that is yoga chitta vritti nirodha, the entire world would begin to appear as heaven, living heaven right here, right on this planet. If you really want to experience as a collective family, as a united family, we all have a collective destiny. The mankind has a collective destiny. The organized religions have created more of problems and solved very few of the problems. It's time that we, all the humanity, identify, explore and bring out the spiritual dimensions of all the religions and put together. And once you bring out the spiritual dimensions, not religious dimensions, huge difference. Spirituality is one, spirituality unites, religion always divides. So yoga in this sense of the term, that divine union of the individual self with the Supreme Self, is yoga, is the art, science and philosophy of self-realization and God-realization. It has nothing to do with any religion. It's a cosmic and universal in its theory and praxis. So my dear divine friends across the globe, let's first understand the deeper dimensions of yoga, the spiritual dimensions of yoga. It doesn't mean that I am suggesting not to do yoga asanas or pranayama. Please continue. It has tremendous health benefits, mental benefits, but yoga in its entirety, in totality, is such a revolutionary science which can transform the fate, fortune and future of mankind. So please try to include in your yoga regime the Chitta Vritti Nirodha dimension, that is called yoga, where you take the practitioner where he dissolves his individual self and ego and merges with the Supreme Self. That has to be experienced in this life itself, not after death. It's not so difficult. I am prepared to volunteer my life, entire life, to dedicate my life. If in any way, anyone, any group, any country, any culture, any society feels I can come and provide my services to demonstrate and take you directly in that state where you by yourself would realize the greatness of that dimension, the spiritual and philosophical dimension of yoga, which will, in real sense of the term, lead to cessation of all the sorrows and sufferings of your life, and you will begin to experience for the first time the life is brimming with joy. The true love, that nectarine bliss, begins to shower in each and every experience of your life. Then and then alone life becomes meaningful. So my dear friends, I wish and pray that the entire humanity realizes that supreme goal in the state of the yoga, when you realize your true identity as the divine supreme self. So now I would go into that state myself. I'll go in first meditation. I'll begin the journey within. I'll resolve my mental modifications. The mind would attain the state of no mind, and then I'll slip into the samadhi. If you are a practitioner of meditation or you want to practice with me, you are most welcome. All my blessings and good wishes are with you. Even if you don't know anything, just watch me meditating and going in samadhi. That would help you take you from the external world to the infinite and vast ocean of the self that is within yourself. So if you want to really experience that vastness within yourself, you can begin the journey from today itself. Even if you just watch me going deep within, the energy radiating from within will make your mind quiet, and it will help you usher in the journey within. So let's begin that journey. Though I am not going to
कर्ताहम् अभोक्ताहम् अविकारोऽहमक्रियः शुद्धबोधस्वरूपोऽहम् केवलोऽहं सदाशिवः नारायणोऽहं नरकान्तकोऽहम् पुरान्तकोऽहं पुरुषोऽहमीशः अखण्डबोधोऽहमशेषसाक्षी निरीश्वरोऽहं निरहं च निर्गुणः